Hey, Pool Chasers. We've partnered up with our friends at Pool Pro Magazine to bring you a news and notes segment each month, which will be starting in August. We are hard at work putting these together, so for this month's segment, we wanted to bring you a State of the Industry episode. We talked with Scott Frost of Fluidra, who's been with the company for 28 years. His experience dealing with radical changes in the industry both now and in the past brought a ton of value to the conversation. One quick note. Remember to check out our new short-length Business Tip of the Month episodes where Greg chats with a member of MPP each month to bring you valuable business advice. Well, without further ado, let's jump into the episode.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Scott, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. Can you introduce yourself and your role at Fluidra with the listeners?
Yes, my name is Scott Frost, Senior Vice President of Sales for North America. So I oversee the sales organization in the United States, and I oversee the business unit in our Canadian operation. I've been with Fluidra going on a little over 28 years now.
Wow, that is very impressive. Almost 30 years. I mean, what have you done in those 30 years, leading up to, your role at Fluidra now?
So it's been an interesting ride. I didn't start in I did start in the pool industry. In high school, I had my family had a pool construction and retail company and service company. And I started cleaning pools in probably the 11th grade and did it up until joining the military at about 19 years old. So pools are in the blood, but I wanted to do something different. So when I joined the Air Force in the early 80s, my goal was to be an aircraft technician. And that's what I followed. I was in the military, worked on Air Force aircraft. And then when I got out, I went into commercial aviation. So I worked for Eastern Airlines. It's some people might know the name, most won't, if you're from the younger generation. But then the 80s happened, or the late 80s happened. So I went from Eastern to a job working on the space shuttle at Lockheed, and did the Grumman aircraft and some military stuff prior to the Gulf War. But it wasn't working. So we decided as a family we're going to open the pool business back up in Central Florida, building pools. So I started again from military aviation to commercial aviation, then back to the pool construction side. And that's where I sort of cut my teeth and learned a lot about the industry from my father-in-law at the time. We were successful, but it's a family business, and we were going through the same challenges as most entrepreneurs go through: capital and just starting the business up. So we had a lot of family members involved. So I made a decision in early 1993 that was driven by a few outside things that happened in my life to look for other opportunities. And an individual that I knew worked for Jandy, the original Jandy that was owned by the Panzini family. And he offered me a service job. So I started in 93 as the Florida service manager. And I knew, and I told him at the time, I want to be in sales. That's my passion, but I'll do whatever it takes to get in. And I have a good technical background from being around pools, but also, coming from the aerospace industry. And that's what I did. I'm a mechanic by heart. I love to fix things and understand how things work. So that became the path. And Jandy was a very small company back in 93, about 15 million in annual sales. And from, just things happened, in the right timing. An individual left. I took a sales position in Florida. We started buying and merging the company. It went from Jandy, small company, to merging with Teledyne in 96, Teledyne Lars. And the company started getting bigger. And that's the path that really started. And I was blessed to work for Vance Gillette, who was an industry pioneer about the backyard vacation. He was talking about backyard vacations, staycations, backyard paradises back, in the 90s. And we talk tech, we talk product, but it was all about, the consumer experience. So I learned from an individual that was definitely ahead of his times when it came to the swimming pool industry. And he mentored me through my career, and I've gone from sales, from service to sales management, taking over different parts of the country to where we are today as the Senior Vice President of Sales for the North America division. And then also we have a business up in Canada I run separately. So it's been, pools in my blood. As you hear, once you have chlorine, you never go back. So in high school, I didn't know I had chlorine, but I did. And I'm back at it. And I would, what's through my career is just watching others grow. That's the passion, is manage people and building the organization what it is today. And it's a significantly different company than when I started, but the same cultures here that we had when we started the small family company.
Right. So Scott, growing up in, around swimming pools, building them, maybe servicing them, different things like that, you probably have a lot of empathy for the individuals out there right now having to deal with the pandemic and, the shortages of goods and different things like that. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an exciting and challenging time all in one. We've never seen anything like this in our industry, obviously, not even, not in the world also. But I try to impart upon the sales team is, we're working with entrepreneurial people that are out there, running businesses, to take care of their families and do the things that they want to do in life. And what we have to do as a vendor is to think that way. And it's always, in our conversations, it's the customer first. And saying that is, if we don't do the things right, if we're not able to supply product, we're not able to give, communicate, or we bring out poor quality product, we're literally taking, food off, the entrepreneurial's plate. You can't send your kids to college. You can't do the things you want. You pay your employees. It's just a snowball effect. So it's something that we always talk about within the organization. We're not perfect by any means, but we have the right heart, and that goes from our global CEO right down to the field. We need to be here to take care of the customers, and through this pandemic event, we've learned a lot. And we're not at the finish line, but we're going to continue to learn and do better.
Right. Love that. So, that's what we're here to discuss today. We want to talk about the state of the industry. And, can you go back to the beginning in 2020 and start when this all happened? And, what were the industry's initial reactions when the pandemic first hit?
Yeah, it was pandemonium, and it was crisis. I mean, I had literally gotten off a plane from Los Angeles. We had met as an executive team, just talking about just generally how 21 was, or 20 and then into 21, we're doing our strategic plan and just talking about the future. And we didn't think the pandemic at that moment. We get back within a couple of weeks, we have a shutdown, and we went into crisis management. That's a global footprint. From Barcelona's our headquarters for our global company. San Diego's our headquarters for North America. The entire organization, top to bottom, went into crisis management. And we looked at, what's the worst case scenario? And we were all wrong. But we found out we were wrong by using data as things change in a very short period of time. So we're very, very much, myself and in the organization, we use data. Also, talking to customer surveys. And we started doing that early on in the pandemic. So let's say, we had the lockdown. Within 30 days, we were seeing life within the industry, and we kept asking. We had thousands of the field sales and service team were tasked with calling customers throughout the country. What's going on? What do you see? And we started seeing that life, and we saw the life very early on in the service industry. Repairs were happening. People were at home. They're like, "Wow, I want that pool to operate." So the data that we use through our sales analytics and just talking to people on the street, we knew that this was not gloom and doom, and we had to prepare for what we didn't know was this industry is going to get through it. And early on we didn't know the increases were going to happen that we see today, but we were preparing for it very early on.
Right. It's so crazy because I don't think any of us realize how much this is a chain effect. We're service people are out cleaning pools, but when it comes to manufacturing a product, if nobody's allowed to come into work and assemble pumps or manufacture this, and then you have to, you're relying on logistics, people that pack these things and trucks to drive them from one location to another. It's just one of those things can be taken out of the equation. It's going to put you behind. It's pretty crazy how much each one of those things in the process needs each other.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. If you're missing a bolt, right, you can't finish the product. I mean, it's just those small things. And so, I mean, we have a very broad global footprint from a manufacturing standpoint. We manufacture product all over the world, over 37 facilities around the globe. That gave us a little bit of an advantage. Also, we brought on an individual from one of our divisions overseas that runs operations, and Nicola and team have just done things that we were planning when building the company. We're doing some transformational things at the time. We had the Zodiac company merge with Fluidra. It was early stages, and we knew we had to make the company bigger from an ops footprint. And those things were in play. So, we did get lucky because we had, we built another heater plant and did some things operationally to say, okay, we're preparing for this growth. And all of a sudden it was a rocket, and you could see every single month from April, the service industry started repairing pools. June, July timeframe, the construction channels started building pools, and it went from there. And so, we've not seen any slowdown since April of 2020. It's only increased exponentially every month. And then there's other events we can talk about that have happened along the way that have thrown us just a few curveballs.
Yeah.
Beyond the pandemic.
Right. And I'm curious about the crisis management you were talking about. Is that something that is put together? Is that something that you revise every year? Was that put together just for the pandemic? I mean, what goes into something like that?
It really was reactionary to the pandemic. So I'd be remiss in saying is that we had a plan. We didn't have a plan. And, we joke with each other today was we're always wrong on the forecast. We had historical basis, and that's how we manage our business. We knew in history, for years what the industry would give us each year. And, it's a moderate growth, and that's how we build our plans. We have to throw that out the door. And I'm not going to claim this comment. It came from another individual, but people have said about the stock market and the consumer demand that's out there. How can it keep going this way? And what the individual said was, if you can't imagine that, you have no imagination. So we're challenging ourselves to imagine something we have no historical basis on, that we could grow, double, triple. The industry could see a long-term run because the backyard, call it the backyard paradise, the staycation, people appreciate it more. The industry was a very small industry, very low visibility, but the consumer today has a lot more appreciation for this amenity within their home. And you're seeing that through new construction and repair and remodel and all the things that are happening today in our space.
I think it's been pretty crazy. You'll see. I mean, I remember that initial reaction of like nobody being able to go out, then to like us being deemed essential, then to like the crazy growth, like you said, from April on. I mean, there was a lot of wave right there in the beginning of, oh man, we don't know what we're going to do. Everybody was, going crazy. And then it was just like a rocket, like you said. It's pretty, that initial reaction was crazy, and then just never stopped.
Right. And you talk to consumers, you talk to, whether you're service, repair, construction, retail, everybody's saying the same thing. It's like, whoa, I can't believe what's happening. So I think we have to imagine a future that is bright for the space. I think from a vendor standpoint, what we have to do is make sure we build the capacity. And, the world prior to COVID was a just-in-time world. It started with Toyota many years ago, just in time. I can turn inventory, but just-in-time worked when you had historical basis to understand what the future would bring. And there's such a lack of understanding of what the future is going to bring us. Just-in-time doesn't work. And every industry, in this country and at many outside of this country went to a just-in-time. So that caught a lot of manufacturing off guard, us too. And what we've, from the CEO down is invest in inventory. That's been a statement from our global CEO since, April of once we figured out we're going in a different direction, we're not crashing and burning, invest in inventory. That's the opportunity. So that's been happening, will continue to happen because, when you're running a business, you can say, oh, I can build a bunch of plants and I can add more tools and more people, but we don't know what the future is going to bring. And could the industry level off or really drop off? We don't believe there's going to be a drop off. We believe there's a leveling, but the leveling is still going to be higher than the industry's experienced in previous years.
Can you explain what that end time is real quick?
So just in time, and there's some articles on it. We didn't invent it. It was invented, I think, by Toyota, and it was in the auto industry that was trying to get the parts would hit the warehouse or the manufacturing facility. The vehicle would be assembled, and the vehicle would go out. And those things were just happening as the vehicle was being assembled. So you were trying to make sure you're getting product into the manufacturing facility, and then complete the production, and then get the product out. And then it would go to distribution, and then distribution would be bringing product in for typically 30, 45 days. And then our industry was used to just picking up the phone in the morning. I mean, I built pools and I would call my distributor in Florida, either the night before or in the morning, say, hey, I need this, this, and this. And it would be there within a day or two. That is completely off the table. So as I've, expressed to my team, one of the things that we can do as an industry is we have to plan more. And the distributors have to hear that from the dealers. And I know that's, in the service industry, that's different because you're not going to know that Mrs. Smith's pump's going to break down today, but you're going to have to give yourself a little bit of, what I would say safety stock. And we're seeing that today as our distributor partners are ordering further in advance to make sure that they have product available because our lead times are much further out. So that's where that just in time just doesn't work because components, electronics, freight. I mean, all these things have these unknown variables and it's so complex. It's unmanageable and unfigure outable, but having inventory on the shelf, this is a solution in this point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So how has the pandemic changed your decision making as a company as a whole? I mean, if you're not going based off of data to make future decisions, what other types of information in the market are you looking for? I mean, is there more emotions tied into this, things that we can't really see?
It's a good point. Because if you don't know something, you'll feel something and you'll just place blind bets. So for us, what we have to do is place bets. And the bet is that's capital. And the capital is to invest in building your operational footprint larger. That's capital to have more inventory. And most of the companies in our industry today are public and they're responsible to the investors. And there's a lot of analytics that go into, measuring a company that we have to meet. But, betting on inventory and continuing to keep a close eye on the analytics. So we have a team internally that's all they do is they just watch the trends. They watch what we call sell through. That's the items that sell from a distributor to you as a customer. We're watching those. We also have loyalty programs that also provide sell through. We see what's happening. So we see the velocity of products. We know the products that are growing. So we're placing bets. We're trying to expand our footprint. And people will hear me talking now and, hey, I can't get this, Scott, or I can't get that. That's happening today. So what we started in that April timeframe of last year, we started showing our distributor partners lead time reports, which we had never done before. So it's going to be 8, 10 weeks out, 12 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever it might be, so that they can plan. We do that on a biweekly basis. We are going out there and asking a lot of questions, looking at our own analytics and with the product management teams and operations to say, okay, we need to lean into salt systems because there's a lack of chlorine. We need to lean into VS pumps because of DOE 16 changes. So that's happening. I've never in my career spent less time selling and more time spending forecasting and looking at the data. And that's what, even my, field level team, that's what they're doing too. We're just trying to get as much information back to the company, really from an operations standpoint, so we can make the right decisions to have product. But I foresee, at least today, given the position we're in, it's going to be a bumpy road for the foreseeable future because there's such a demand out there for our products, the industry's products from a consumer standpoint. It's going to outstrip the capacity of the industry.
Yeah. And in terms of your reaction to the pandemic, how does this compare to other, crises throughout the years?
It's no comparison. I experienced the downturn in 2008 timeframe. The company I worked for at the time was Jandy. It was a standalone company. It had just been bought by a private equity company, getting ready to merge with Zodiac. We lost half our business overnight. That was the worst crisis. This is diametrically opposed to that, and it's exponentially larger impact on the positive side. But that brings us challenges than the downturn.
So the initial reaction was more of a panic, in 2008.
Panic. Everybody would.
Than it is now.
Yeah, our timing just as a company was right. Jandy was merging with Zodiac. Polaris had pool cleaners. So the aftermarket business did very well during the recession. The construction industry came off the tracks. Whereas this uptick is affecting everybody, retail, service, construction, positively.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, so the results of the pandemic have been both positive and negative from what it sounds like. Can you share some of the positives with us first?
Yeah, I think positive is for me, being brought up in the industry is, spending a lot more time around, talking about the convenience and the fun of owning a pool. It's put us on the radar, meaning the consumer appreciates. I was talking to somebody this morning that's in the boating industry, which has experienced an uptick just like we are. And he goes, he's asking for some help, and he goes, I just love my pool. And, you didn't hear that before, right? I really appreciate having that backyard, where I could just sort of turn the TV off, not listen to the news and all the negativity that was going on there. Just go out and have fun, barbecue, play with the kids. And that's, to me, that's the essence of what we're here for. Hey, let's create enjoyment for people. And the industry has seen that. And there's a major, emphasis on swimming pools today, that they're very positive. Because in past years, when you bought a house and you had a pool, you got to take care of it. If you don't have a pool in your house today, it's not going to sell as fast as one that has a pool. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in.
Yeah.
Other positives is, I think, going back to, just the relevance in the industry from a consumer standpoint, is just seeing everybody come together and really try to pull together and figure it out. I know there's challenges out there, but we're blessed to be in a space that we're in, because not all industries experience the positive. I would say to friends that were in other spaces that, I'm a little embarrassed to say that, we're doing really well during COVID. And that positive is, it employs people. We're able to go out there and, continue this thing going, even though there was a lot of people that were impacted in a negative manner during that time.
Yeah. I think it's funny because people will say that, they're using the backyard differently, but we're not really using the backyard and the pool any differently. I feel like pools have finally come back because we're doing the same things. We're just doing it more often. It's almost like what it might have been like to enjoy swimming pools, before any type of technology. Mm-hmm. If you look at all the old advertising from maybe the 70s, 60s, and 50s, Pepsi, Coke, they're always by the swimming pool. They're barbecuing. They're doing everything that we're talking about and highlighting now. So it's funny that, everything kind of just comes back. I think that's a huge positive.
Yeah. You triggered a thought is, others using our product as advertisements. So again, the Vance who mentored me in my career, he had a presentation that we were giving probably in the late 90s. It was called Pools Are Everywhere. And all it was a montage of advertisements of other industries portraying a pool in their app. It went from vodka to Marriott hotels to resorts. You never really saw the hotel room or the resort. You saw the pool and all the fun.
Smart guy.
So I think that's the cool thing about the industry is that when I've flown many miles in aircraft and people ask you, what do you do? Oh, I'm in the pool industry. They look at you a little.
Yeah.
Do you build pools? And we always, I try to, have a little comic relief with people. We're just, I learned we're in the backyard entertainment business. And then that changes. It's now, I think the consumers really appreciate what we bring to the table. And the only way this happens, we're a manufacturer, vendor, is the trade. Your listeners are the ones that make it happen for the customers, not us.
Right. I feel like you got to be careful. My luck is never good when they tell me, when people ask what I do, because they always need something. You know what I mean? And it's always like a weird part. They're like, oh, have you seen one of these? Do you know where I can get this?
I know.
Dude, I don't even know what the hell that is.
Yes. Yeah. I live in Florida and in South Florida, and everybody's moving to South Florida or moving to Florida or moving to Texas or different places, different Sunbelt parts of the country. And neighbor moved in and she asked my wife, we're just talking, oh, you're in the pool business? I go, what's this going on in my pool? I said, please, I can help, but but it's a great,
I had a buddy text me yesterday of some pool question, and then like an hour later I was on Facebook and going through, and there was some meme. It was like showing people waving, and it was like, oh, people you've known forever, and then it's like a guy looking, and he's like, just ask me the pool question already. Like it's hilarious. Exactly. It happened like within an hour, and I texted him the picture. I was like, hey, I'm always willing to help you. This is so funny that it popped up after you just reached out to me in the blue. It's always, I'll get random people text me all the time. Hey, I got a pool question. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, no. And I think that's that's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy is that as we get more relevancy in the industry and we do a lot of good advocating for everything that about a pool, whether it's swimming or enjoyment, whatever you pick as the important part of owning a pool. It's going to help the industry long term, and and hopefully attract people to it, because obviously some of the things that we're lacking today is obviously product is one, but it's also people, right? People that people don't come out of school and say, I'm going to go be a swimming pool contractor, swimming pool repair person. But you look at this industry. There's a lot of wealth out here that has been created by repairing and retailing and building.
Yeah, I think a lack of understanding of how complex it is too is interesting, because those texts you get or whatever at questions is always just like, my pool is doing this, what's wrong with it? And you're like, well, I don't know, I'm not there. There's so many different variables that could be going on. They just think it's going to be answered in one quick text. That's funny. All right. So speaking of kind of negative effects, what were some of those that have happened since the pandemic?
I think negative for us, we did have to lay some people off early in the early stages, which is, you never want to do that. So there was some really what we call crisis management to protect the company financially, for our public investors that own us. I think that we got over that, pretty quick. I think that the biggest one for me is I can't take care of all my customers. That's the most frustration, is that, we're trying to communicate, and what I tell my team to do is let's just reach out to our loyal customers and ask them what they need. And we move things around to try to keep keep their heads above water, be able to finish projects and get paid. That's the biggest negative. It's, we're disappointing people. Consumers don't understand. They think we're making this stuff up, which, I have 2 pools being constructed around my house, that, one across the street and one on the side. And they're asking me, why is it taking so long? And I said, there's a lot of things going on here. It starts with labor, starts with materials, and the demand. So that's frustrating. I know that's, we don't want to, sort of dwell on that frustration, but we just, the goal is, listen, empathize with what's going on and try to help and move on to the next project. And I think we keep that attitude going forward as an organization and as an industry. I think the consumers will, once they're in the pool and enjoying it, it's all that struggle they had getting there would be forgotten. I think, just the unknown is another frustration that just, it's not negative for me. It's just frustrating that I can't predict what's going to happen. Whereas, having many years in the industry, I could predict from I do all the forecasting and sales planning. I could plan pretty close to the pin what we're going to need in the following year, over a period of time. So that would be probably the biggest negative. All other obstacles that are coming at us, whether it's, we look at COVID demand, that was one, lift. We go through 2020 and COVID's driving business like we never thought. Then we throw in, other vendor shortages. Then that puts pressures on each other's. If I don't have a pump, I'm going to go grab it from somebody else that I would not normally buy. So that changes your visibility to actually what's being sold. Not by the customers that would normally buy it. In our case, Jandy or Polaris item, they might have bought some other vendor and now they're buying ours, or vice versa. That can create a lot of what I call noise in the forecasting. Then the Texas freeze. I texted my Texas manager the day one of that freeze, and I had experienced it in Oklahoma quite a few years ago, but it was a very small area. I mean, Oklahoma's not a big pool state. There's a lot of pools there, but not in comparisons to Texas. And I said, be prepared. This one's going to be ugly. And we started using some customers in the Metroplex area to look at how many repairs were happening, and the number it's a number I've never seen before. So that Texas freeze potentially impacted a full year's production of the country, just in that one event. And that event went from, below zero freezing temperatures, in, let's say 5 to 6 days, power outage. So freeze protection wouldn't work, and freeze protection would not have worked even without the power outage because it was too cold. And then just equipment wholesale. I mean, the pictures I've seen, I've got a library of pictures from A to Z where everything broke. The filter tank broke, the valves broke. So that put a curveball to the entire industry. The valves, the booster pumps, the filters, the heaters. So that was not expected, and it's call it a 100-year event like a hurricane. But it really hit all of North Texas, a lot of the states like Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then down even to the southern part of the state. And those pools still haven't been completely repaired. So that's that.
So did you have to send us a huge supply of product there at one big?
No, we had to do the
kind of
opposite.
production,
We had to
or-
do the opposite.
Oh,
the
really?
opposite was, and there's going to be Texas listeners going to be mad at me, but we had to retract. We had to say, okay, here's what the fair share is for Texas, and then we have to parse it out because the Texas event really wiped out in many cases the entire country's stock of product. Because there were people in Texas that, hey, I'm going to fix pools. We're driving to other states and working with other distributors or buying online to bring products to repair pools. But, because what happened is it froze and the next day it got sunny and it was, 75 degrees and where's my pool? Why isn't it working? And that was, I believe it was over 100,000 consumers hit, and I have people that have said it's lower than that. I've had people that say it's higher. We just used some sales, some analytics that came out with our math, but it's a lot. So that's all, I could say a lot of people are affected and they're still not repaired today. 100%.
Would that reaction have been the same if we weren't in a kind of uptick in the industry? Like say if it was a normal year and then that freeze happened, would you have been able to kind
we'd be able to
ship more product to Texas
100%.
like that?
Yeah, and we did ship more product to Texas. We just couldn't give Texas all the product they needed. So we did, we
Right.
did change the way our system, because our system is an automated system. Orders come in, it plugs them in, and it's basically first in, first out. So we had to maneuver things around so that we wouldn't lose all of our inventory in one event, because we had to make sure, at that time, that was mid-February timeframe, is that the Northeast, Midwest hadn't come online, Canada hadn't come online yet. So we couldn't, say, okay, well, let's fix all Texas, because we knew the impact, the demand we were seeing from COVID was beyond our capacity at the time, that we would not be able to recover and take care of those customers. So the goal was, it was a internal discussion that let's try to keep it as fair as possible. I know it's going to frustrate, but we're going to try to keep the product flowing to keep people being able to build and service and repair pools.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing for the industry to listen and understand, is that you guys have to project the whole country when these things happen, and you just can't feed one area, because you guys had known, okay, that the uptick from the pandemic everywhere else. Now, as soon as summer comes around for these Northeast states, and like you said, Canada, then they're going to probably take the same boom, and we have to be able to supply at least some, product to those areas as well. So I think a lot of people don't kind of understand the logistics of manufacturing, and that you guys have to do those kind of things.
Right. And so you have to empathize when you're in the heat of it. If you're a servicer that has, 100 customers calling on you to repair their pool because, water's shooting out of the top of the filter or the pump, you're in the heat of the battle and you really don't care what my problems are. I mean, I say that not to demean what we do, but to make sure that we have to understand, hey, they don't have any control over this Texas freeze. We have to do our best to get as much product there as possible. And the team, once the Texas event happened, the team was ramping up. Valve production was the biggest one. For us, it was valves, booster pumps and pumps were the biggest hit items that happened. So we're still not out of the woods, but we know the customers are in the heat of the battle and getting beat up.
Yeah, we have a ton of sympathy for anybody that had to go through any of that. I mean, we weren't running a company at that time, so I have a lot of friends we talk to that are in Texas that, that's something they've never seen before, and it's definitely tough to manage.
And it provided an opportunity, I'd say if you could capitalize it, monetarily, you could, helps
Sure.
you,
Yeah,
have a nice year.
there is that part to it, as long as you can get the product.
As long as you get the stuff.
What about the kind of Suez Canal? I mean, I've heard a little bit about that, but how has that affected everything?
Yeah, I mean, for us, most of our products did not transit that part of the world. So logistics, in a nutshell, is horrific. I mean, whether it's Panama Canal, Suez Canal, trucking, rates, whether it's bringing things from different parts of the world, freight rates are significantly higher than we've used to, because the world is experiencing an uptick in demand online. It's sort of when I say online, people are buying it differently, so that's creating a lot of pressure on the logistics, the trucking lines, and those type of things. So that's probably been our biggest challenge, just overall logistics. Getting trucks to pick up the product and take it to the next spot to get it to the consumer or to the dealer, which in turn goes.
Is
to the
that kind
consumer.
of a lack of labor, or what?
I mean, it goes from demand. So there's too much demand, not enough truck drivers. You're looking at, to get something in a ship, to move, a container in a ship, the lead times, you just call them up, you get a spot rate and you go. Today, you have to plan many weeks in advance. So, we have a team that's just focused on freight, freight in, freight out, and it's a pretty extensive. We're a big company, but if you think about big companies around the globe, it's logistics is the biggest challenge.
Do you think that labor will change maybe with the unemployment rules kind of changing here shortly?
I hear that. I mean, I think as unemployment rules change, that will really force people back to work, or at least saying,
Trying to
hey,
find a job, maybe.
Yeah. I want to trying to find a job, right? And in the job market, I mean, we all know. I mean, it's like for us, we're trying to hire people ourselves. It's very difficult to hire people because there's a lot of good jobs out there. So and that goes from a high level skill right down to tech. And I say this, depending on the skill level. You would think there'd just be an exorbitant amount of people. It's just not the case. We post for jobs, whether it's service or sales or something in the facility. You don't get a lot of respondents today. And when you do get, there's some, we're creating inflation because there's more demand on getting people. So pays are coming up. And, labor,
for sure.
It's a big one.
So what's being done by the manufacturers then to kind of help these supply chain issues?
I think all of us are trying to expand our operational footprint. For us, it's communication. Even though you might not like my answer, here's my answer, and then it allows you to plan. So one of my biggest learnings, and I know operations' biggest learnings, is that providing tools to communicate lead times, and we're working on a software which we call Fluidra Pro. That's going to allow our servicers that use our either our Ion Pool Care service or do warranty to be able to access real time a lot of things that we're going to have. So our goal is to create tools through the digital world that allows the end user, really the pro is how we look at it, to be able to know what's going to happen, and then that allows you to run your business. I mean, to me, the manufacturer that I work for, we make product, right? It's to me that's table stakes, but our job. And it's part of our overall initiative is make our business partners better. So that's not just through making more products is important today, but it's through business software and things that help you run your business more efficiently. Because the most valuable thing that we all have is time. And if I can save you time, you can go out and repair more pools. And selfishly, I get the benefit of getting more things sold. So I think that's as we go forward, it's communication, being visible. Don't hide behind taking that hard phone call, because these calls are not fun. Emails, text, I've had multiple texts and emails today where customers are frustrated, and we have to talk to them, to listen, empathize, and then we have to figure out a plan to help them through it. And that's if we can all do that together. And I represent, and I'm biased because I'm a Fluidra, Jandy, Polaris guy. I want more of my products to sell, but as an industry, if we all do that better, it's going to make the industry better. And then and the consumer gets a better experience, because ultimately if the consumer gets a bad experience on our products, they're not going to return. Right?
Yeah. What's being done on the, production lines? I mean, how has that been ramped up for all this?
Yeah. So we've, so I can only speak for our company in North America. We've doubled output. It's not enough. But in a very short period of time, we've been able to increase the output more than double. So, the amount of incoming orders is much greater than that. But the ops team is committed, as we have an individual, and this is Nicola, who I mentioned earlier. It's Scott, don't panic. We're going to figure it out. And he's got a real heavy French accent, but he really has looked at it differently. He came from a different division that really worked heavily in seasonal. Even though the U.S. business and Canadian business is seasonal, he worked in an area that really required him to do things differently. And he's brought that here to our business unit here in North America. So really helped us. You gotta listen, and we have to use the data to make sure that we're making the right decisions. And you got to make the industry's expanding. We got to make more things, and that takes investment from a vendor standpoint. We have to invest, and that's capital, and there's a lot of decisions that go into doing that. But that's the absolute thing that we have to do today. We can't wait for it to slow down. That's missing opportunities that we have.
So does that mean like more people working more hours? You guys have, built other facilities to make more product? I mean, what does that all look like?
So it goes from, extending shifts, more hours, and even, that's not just a solution, right? So if I just extend shifts, but I don't have components coming in to build things, having people on the clock doesn't matter. So it's looking at, longer lead times, bringing in more quantities of components, extending shifts, adding tooling, in the injection molding process, adding presses. We have expanded factory capacities, building larger, increasing DC capacity, which is a distribution center. So we bring product to our distribution centers that goes out to our distributor partners. So it's all of the above, and anything that we miss, we've got to turn that rock over and find that what can we do to make us be able to produce more items in a given day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, what should manufacturers be doing to help their customers navigate this tricky time?
I know it's a tough one, and I think the learning for us is communication. We started it day one, and I wasn't comfortable giving an answer that really was not an answer I wanted to hear. But we learned early on is that was a big piece, communication. I think as we go forward, it's technology that's going to help our customers understand when product is coming. So we're doing that today too. We call attempt to promise, and we're showing when product is that when it's ordered, we show what month it's going to ship. We've never been able to do that up until the COVID event. So that we built tools to do those things to show our customers, hey, here's what's going to happen. So at least they can plan accordingly. And I think all manufacturers, are trying to figure out, what's the best course of action for their business. We all know there's a big demand out there, and it's how do you ramp up your production that's sustainable too? Because if all of a sudden you ramp it up to, double or triple of your current production and it goes away, then you've made a poor investment.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has taught us a lot, especially about, I think a lot more companies, and I've heard it on a lot of podcasts, especially from like the airlines, is it they have people that work full-time in building processes and game planning if any kind of event happens that they've never even seen before. So I think it's a good idea for, small companies, big companies to just, even have those what if conversations, like what if this happens? How will we react to it? Things are good right now. What are we going to do when things, slow down, 50%? And I think it's just, this is probably the one that shook everybody and probably thinking about, both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and I would challenge, the customer base is, you relied a lot on the distributors and the vendors. Is your own, work on your business, right? You hear that adage is look for your contingency plans. Each business is different in different size and scale. I've seen some customers that really weathered well during the pandemic because they made different moves early on to say, okay, I see something coming here. I'm going to place a bet. And I know that's tougher to put it's because it's capital. When you talk about, bringing inventory or having a warehouse or doing different things to have some extras, but for those who did it, it was a good investment. So I know it's not possible for everybody to do that same thing, but I think about looking at your business plan as much as you can, have some safety stock, make sure you're communicating, whether it's the vendor that you so choose to do business with, talking to the local representation, asking questions and engage, because I personally don't think this is going to slow down in the foreseeable future. Maybe it levels, but it's just not going to go back to where it was pre March of 2020. So just trying to do more planning and spending more time working on your business. And I think technology is out there, business software, we make a suite of software for managing the business, ours or something else to really understand what's going on in your business. It's a good investment. The best investment is in yourself, right? Yourself and your business. And those are the things you can control. You can't control the pandemic. You can't control consumers being upset, but you can control, yourself and your business and try to, prepare for the future. And we've seen the positive benefits. Overall, it's a positive benefit for the industry, even though it's frustrating.
I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of positives too in communicating well with your customers, your team, your vendors, all those different things. Even if it's just like an email newsletter going out that's talking about cool stuff, it's talking about things that, aren't so cool. Maybe we're looking at a drought, who knows what it is. But if you are constantly talking to your customers or your trade partners or whoever it may be, when, things go south, I think it's going to make it that much easier, because you're talking about, some very difficult, texts and calls and emails that you have to make. Those are, so much easier, when you have these, relationships, not so much from a manufacturer, because you're getting stuff from places, it's pretty much impossible for you to have that, you know, relationship with some of those people. But for some of us, you know, probably should be looking at, you know, our customer base and our vendors kind of in a different light as well.
And I would add is that previous to COVID, I would never thought I'd be on a podcast. So it's another vehicle of communication, right? I'm one of the old guys. What is a podcast? No, sorry. Yeah, but no, it's just a different way. You know, it's whether it's through social media or these type of vehicles to make sure they're getting the message out. Because I know there's people that are going to hear, well, Scott, I had this individual problem. You did, and I can, you know, we can try our best to help you through it. But some of these things are, well, the demand that was created is unavoidable. Nobody could have figured this out. You know, because I've heard people say that in Texas, well, you could have done this and this to prevent it. No, these are historic events that nobody could ever predicted, no matter how much you watch the news channel or the weather channel.
Right. I was going to say, I think our industry has a unique situation with that too, as far as you guys were talking about planning, because most people probably plan for a shortage or something, or not a shortage of supply, but like a shortage of business, like they did in '08, where it was like, okay, well, if that happens again, this is our plan. But nobody probably had conversations about what happens if we can't get product, or we can't, you know, build pools, or can't get all these things that are happening now. Nobody can think of that. So I think you're right, having these conversations now of as business owners, especially Greg, like you said, in the service side of things, like creating some type of savings and some type of way to get inventory or stock inventory in your warehouse. You know, I think a lot of service companies have that same, you know, the just in time, like you were talking about, we just buy stuff as we need it. And now you're seeing the ones that did carry inventory. Like I know several that have big warehouses. The ones that had inventory are being a lot more successful right now with being able to provide, you know, good lead times on, you know, getting stuff installed because they have it in their warehouse. So the ones that were able to buy stuff in bulk and, you know, be prepared, they're being really successful. So a lot of the service industries, I think, need to change the way they think as well, and need to have a savings account and probably not hire 40 people at one time. You know, you got to manage that growth differently, and maybe that means shifting money towards supply instead of towards growth. You know, it's just a lot of different ways of thinking that way.
Yeah, I think each, especially the service trade, you know your customer base, you know your high runners, keeping a safety stock there, and that's like putting money in the bank, right, for a rainy day. That we would never have imagined prior to this event that we would have a product shortage that we have today.
Yeah.
It was
Do your
unimaginable.
due diligence. Don't listen to this and just start buying stuff, because there are quite a few things that have a shelf life. I don't think some people understand that there are quite a few things, even like any kind of rubberized products. They do have a shelf life. You don't want to stick in a warehouse and you know, oh yeah, I got one of those 3 years later, and it's like, hey, I can't use that, dude. You're gonna have leaks or whatever.
I think looking at your business and doing a good self-assessment once a year, or you know, quarterly, however you want to plan. But just that's, you know, the easy thing is to react to what the consumer wants, right? I need my pump fixed, or I need my pool cleaned. That's, you know, reacting. Being proactive and looking at your business in a proactive approach is a good practice. We're always trying to do that and test ourselves and challenge ourselves to make sure, you know, what if, and you know, pandemic taught us you better be doing this pressure testing a lot more often, because there's a lot of what ifs that we didn't know.
We're speaking from experience. I mean, we've been there. That's how we operated too. So it's not an easy transition.
No. What should dealers be doing to adjust consumer expectations and avoid issues?
Yeah, top of the list, communicate. And I know the consumer doesn't, you know, they have lack of patience. We all do. I think in today's world, it's of the instant need, you know, the instant gratification that we all want. But trying to be honest, forthcoming, just tell them like it is. And you know, if somebody's in there behind you, giving them, you know, what I call a song and dance, and you know, promising things that they don't deliver, you know, their experience is going to be bad. And I'm a believer in just being as black and white. This is what's going to happen. This is the lead time. I'm going to do my best to take care of you, but these are the things I'm dealing that are outside of my control. So, you know, I'm a believer in not focusing on things I cannot control. I focus on things I can control. So I think communication, honest, open with your customers. Most people, most consumers, we're too close to it. I mean, you know, the industry, being in the industry, we're too close to it. We hear it, you know, you hear it so many times a day, whether it's my sales or service team, we get really tight about, getting that feedback. But I think, people, the consumer, typically they have a pool or they're getting a pool, and this is maybe once or twice in their lifetime. They're not as close to it. They just want, they want the experience to be good. So I think just communication. It's not gonna make it come any faster, but at least they know you're being straight. You're just shooting straight, and you're just, hey, I'm here for you. And when this thing passes and we get behind this and it sort of settles out, I'm still going to be here supporting you.
I think we need to really explain to the customers of what's going on and not just say, I can't get product, because that's where they're going to get frustrated and don't understand. If you explain the growth of the pandemic and the demand of if you go into detail with these people, they're going to have a much better understanding of what you're dealing with and what you're going through as the pool service company or pool builder than they would if you just say, sorry, I can't get it. That's not a good explanation. It's not good communication. That's how you make yourself and the industry look bad, is you don't prepare for those conversations. Greg, just like we talk about all the time, if you got to prepare and practice for those conversations so that when you do have to have them, they come out much better and you look better in the long run by doing that. And that way they'll have a much better understanding. Most people will anyways. You're still going to have those customers that are, don't get it, but.
Yeah. And we just put a communication today. It's not going to be it's not like an e-blast to the world, but it is if customers need, an explanation from our point of view, it is an explanation that they could pass off. And I bet, the sales team will receive it next week. Say where you need to, if the customer needs a letter like this to give to their consumer, you can use it. It just gives an overarching view of what's happened. So the consumer could say there's shortages in logistics and freight and resins and, just that's the big picture. It's just not one. If it was one singular thing that we could fix, we would have fixed it already. It's not one singular thing. It's a multitude of things. It's, it's a concert of events that have happened along the way. So, so that, we're trying to give tools to our customer base that could go out there and say, Mrs. Smith, this is coming from one of the larger manufacturers in the space. And we're not making this up.
Yeah. Maybe we could get that. That'd be cool. We could share
I'll
with
send it to
everybody.
you guys.
Cool. So from what you've seen in past crises, how do you project the results from this one, being compared to those?
Yeah. So there's no comparison. This is going to give visibility to our industry and put it in a place in the consumer's mind that they're going to want our products. The growth has never been seen before. So even the decline that we had in '08, this growth is, far beat it. And the industry, I believe, is going to be on a different trajectory going forward. Now, will it settle down? I believe that's true. Will it decline slightly? Yet to be seen. But I think the industry is going to see growth over a period of time because it's, the 2008 boom, or the 2000 boom in the housing market was artificial. It was fueled by bad debt that nobody knew at the time it was bad debt, but we were artificially fueling, housing. Today it's real. I mean, you can read all the articles about mortgages today. It's hard to get a mortgage, if you don't have all the check boxes done. And so banks are scrutinizing. So that means it's real. It's real wealth coming into the market. People moving, appreciating their home more. So that means there's going to be more single family homes, and hopefully an opportunity to put our product in. So I think the industry is going to see, a growth pattern that they haven't seen in the past. You're also seeing a migration in this country. There's a lot of reports out there showing that people are leaving cities, as we know. You hear it on the news. They're moving to Sunbelt states. They're moving to the suburbs of, the northern tier, and they're investing in their homes. That's real. And that's something we haven't seen. Whereas, this last year, everybody has experienced COVID differently. Living in Florida, we pretty open most of the time. They approach it differently. Our economy's strong, and the amount of homes, you can't find a house without getting, it's like California used to be, we've never seen in Florida like the bid up on a house. It's happening today, like California has experienced previously. So I think we're going to see what that number is. It's I don't know, but the industry is healthy, and I think it's going to be healthy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think it's always good to prepare for it, though, because I think you are right. It's going to level off at some point because you're already seeing airplanes now are packed. I mean, baseball stadiums are packed with people, so their money is now being spread out a little bit more than it was during the past year. So there is a point where it will level off. So we probably need to prepare for that as well. But yeah, it's something like it's never seen before for sure.
Right. And I think just keeping an imaginative mind, as I said earlier, just having a broader imagination that this thing could go longer. Because every month, we projected back in mid 2000 that 21 would slow down, and we had it all built into our models, and it didn't happen, and it hasn't happened yet. So we're saying, well, maybe 22 is going to slow down. Well, we'll see in 22, because we don't have any historical basis in this kind of growth. That's the difficult piece. So I think just making sure you're prepared, save for a rainy day, have some safety stock, have some things to see what happens in the future. But I think the industry's a great place to be. We're blessed to be in the pool industry and provide a product to the consumer that it's fun. I mean, that's the the word of the day. To me, it's just fun. And what space can you be where you can have fun?
Yeah, and I think some of the changes that have happened, like more people working from home, some of that stuff's going to stick. So, I mean, a lot of it's made these huge companies realize, well, people can still be productive at home, so maybe we should give them the opportunity. And if people are in their homes, working, they're going to want to invest in their homes, because that's where they're going to spend most of their time, whereas they weren't spending half their life in an office, so there's that as well. And
you can see it in California. It is sticking. In San Diego, in Carlsbad, where we're at, many of the companies are 100% work at home, and they're never going back. So it depends on, especially technology companies. The pool industry, through COVID, when all of us were locked down and couldn't do things, you got, your people who are out there, our people were out there working, right? So it hasn't slowed down for them. So I would also suggest that everybody take, you have to take a breather, because the pool industry has been working hard since last year. Haven't been sitting at the house, and I get not beat up, but hey Scott, what are you guys in the field? I mean, we had a lot of things that were required from a big company to as around employees health and safety, because that's paramount. Employees health and safety was first, and so we had a lot of restrictions around travel. That's pretty much released through the whole country. Canada's still shut down. Should start coming back online here shortly as their vaccine supply increases. But we just we appreciate all that support from the industry, and what the industry's done. I mean, the pros have done to keep us alive and keep us thriving.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, we'll put all the information in the show notes below or on the website blog page. But just want to say thank you once again. We really appreciate your time. This was a great conversation, and I think people will get a lot from it.
No, thanks for having me, Greg and Todd. Appreciate it. And again, thank you to all of the folks out there that are making the pool industry great. Thank you.
Hey, pool chasers. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To connect with today's guests, including pictures, links, and resources from everything discussed today, you can visit the episode page at poolchasers.com or click the links below. To connect more with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by searching at Pool Chasers. If you would like to support the podcast, the easiest and most effective way is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as share the show or your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Also, you can get early access to each episode by supporting us through Patreon. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for sharing some of yours with us today.
See you out there, pool chasers.